Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight we are stepping into a world where skincare meant something completely different than it does now. A world where the bathroom counter held Pond's cold cream, Noxzema in that iconic blue jar, and maybe a bottle of witch hazel your mother swore by. No serums, no retinol, no 10-step routines or ingredient lists you need a chemistry degree to understand. Just simple rituals, handed down through generations, practiced quietly in bathrooms across America while the rest of the house slept. Before we begin, I want to sincerely thank the person who suggested this topic. You know who you are, and your idea sparked something special here. This channel exists because of suggestions like yours, and I'm genuinely grateful. If you're enjoying these quiet trips into the past, go ahead and like the video, subscribe if you have not already, and drop a comment letting me know where you are listening from and what time it is. I know someone out there is cozied up at 2 a.m. pretending this counts as productivity. I see you, I appreciate you. And hey, the channel's now live on Spotify, so if you want to take these stories with you on your commute, during a walk, or just drifting off to sleep, the link is in the description below. No pressure, just an option if it suits you. Now, get comfortable, dim the lights if you can, maybe turn on a fan for that gentle white noise. Settle into your blanket, adjust your pillow, and let yourself sink into this moment. Because tonight, we are not just talking about skincare, we're talking about a ritual, a quiet act of care that women practiced alone, in the glow of a single bathroom bulb before the world woke up and demanded their attention. Have you ever wondered what it felt like to care for your skin without tutorials, without influencers, without algorithms telling you what you needed? What did a Tuesday morning routine look like in 1975? Did women feel pressure the way we do now, or was skincare simply something you did, quietly, without performance or explanation? What did the bathroom smell like? What did the cold cream feel like on tired skin after a long day? And could you survive a month using only the products they had? No acids, no SPF 50, no hyaluronic anything, just soap, water, and maybe a little Vaseline if your mother was feeling generous. And just like that, it is 1972. The sun is barely up. The house is quiet. Someone down the hall is running water, and you're standing in front of the bathroom mirror, about to begin a ritual your mother taught you and her mother taught her. Simple, steady, yours. Let us start with the morning, because that is where it all began. You wake up, shuffle to the bathroom, and turn on the faucet. The water takes a moment to warm, so you splash your face with cold first, a shock that pulls you gently into the day. The bathroom is quiet. The rest of the house still sleeps. Outside, the neighborhood is just beginning to stir, a dog barking somewhere down the street, a car door closing, the faint hum of someone starting their day before the sun has fully risen. But here, in this small tiled room with the mirror that needs cleaning and the towel hanging crooked on the rack, it is just you and the sound of running water. You cup your hands beneath the stream and bring the water to your face. Cold at first, startlingly so, but it wakes you in a way coffee cannot. The chill spreads across your cheeks, your forehead, the bridge of your nose. You do it again and again, until your skin feels alive, alert, ready. There is no cleanser yet, no foaming gel or micellar water, just water. Plain, honest, straight from the tap. It is the same water you drink, the same water you use to rinse dishes and fill the kettle. It does not promise anything except to be there, reliable and constant every single morning. You reach for the towel. It is slightly rough, worn soft in some places and stiff in others from too many trips through the dryer. You press it gently against your face, soaking up the wetness, feeling the fabric against your skin. The towel smells faintly of detergent, that clean, soapy scent that clings to everything washed in Tide or All. Your reflection stares back at you. No makeup yet. No armor. just your face, bare and vulnerable and entirely your own. The light above the mirror is harsh, unforgiving, the kind of light that shows every line, every imperfection, every sign that you're human and tired and carrying the weight of yesterday into today. But you do not flinch. This is the face you know best, the one you see before anyone else does, the one that belongs to you alone before the world gets its hands on it. You turn the faucet again, adjusting the temperature until the water runs warm. This time, the splash is gentler, soothing. It runs down your face in rivulets, tracing the curve of your jaw, dripping from your chin into the sink below. You close your eyes and let the warmth settle into your skin, loosening the tightness of sleep, softening the edges of the night. This is the ritual, simple, steady, unchanged for as long as you can remember. Your mother did this, her mother before her, a lineage of women standing at sinks, washing their faces in the early morning quiet, preparing to meet the day with clean skin and steady hands. There is something grounding about it, something that roots you in the present moment, in this bathroom, in this body, in this life. The water does not ask anything of you. It does not demand perfection or effort or transformation. It simply is. And for now, that is enough. You splash once more, then reach for the towel again, pat dry, breathe. The morning has begun. Skincare in the 70s was not complicated. Most women used bar soap, the same kind the whole family used, Ivory or Dove if you were lucky, something harsher if you were not. You lathered it between your palms, worked it into your skin, and rinsed until your face felt tight and clean. This soap sat in a dish by the sink, softened from use, its edges rounded and smooth. If you were the first one up, it was still dry and hard. If someone else had beaten you to the bathroom, it was damp and slippery, a little harder to grip. Either way, you picked it up, ran it under the water and began. The lather built slowly. You rubbed the bar between your hands, working it into a foam that smelled clean and plain and vaguely alkaline. Nothing floral, nothing fancy. Just soap, doing what soap does. You brought your hands to your face and spread the lather across your cheeks, your forehead, your chin. It felt slick and slightly gritty. The texture of something working, scrubbing, lifting away whatever the night had left behind. You worked it in with small, circular motions the way your mother taught you. Not too rough, not too gentle. Just enough pressure to feel like you were actually cleaning something. The soap covered your skin in a thin white film, coating every inch, erasing the face you woke up with and leaving behind something blank, something ready to be rinsed and started over. Then came the rinse. You bent over the sink, cupped your hands beneath the faucet, and splashed until the soap was gone. It took several rounds. The water ran cloudy at first, thick with suds, then gradually cleared as you rinsed and rinsed again. You did not stop until your face felt squeaky, that unmistakable tightness that meant every trace of oil, every bit of residue had been stripped away. Your skin felt different now. Clean, yes, but also taut, almost dry. The soap had done its job, maybe a little too well. Your face felt like it had been scrubbed raw, exposed, vulnerable to the air in a way that made you want to reach for something, anything to put the moisture back. But that was normal. That was how clean was supposed to feel. Tight, a little uncomfortable, proof that the dirt was gone, that you had reset yourself, that the day could begin on a blank slate. You dried your face with a towel, pressing it gently against your skin. The fabric absorbed the water, leaving your face damp but no longer dripping. You looked at yourself in the mirror. Your skin was pink now, slightly flushed from the scrubbing and the hot water. Your pores looked smaller, your complexion brighter, even if it felt a little raw. This was the foundation. Soap and water. Nothing more. Nothing less. It was what your grandmother used, what your mother used, what every woman you knew used. It was cheap, it was simple, and it worked well enough. You did not question it. You did not wonder if there was a better way. You just washed your face, dried it, and moved on. Because in the 70s, skincare was not about innovation or transformation. It was about maintenance, about keeping yourself clean, presentable, ready to face whatever the day would bring. Soap and water did that, and for most women, that was all they needed. If there was one product nearly every American woman owned in the 70s, it was Noxzema. That blue jar sat on bathroom counters from coast to coast, filled with thick white cream that smelled like menthol and medication, and something vaguely medicinal your grandmother trusted without question. You unscrewed the lid, and the scent hit you immediately. Sharp, cooling, unmistakable. It was not a pleasant smell, not in the way perfume is pleasant, but it was familiar, comforting even. It smelled like taking care of yourself, like doing something good for your skin, even if you were not entirely sure what that something was. The cream inside was thick, almost paste-like. You scooped a dollop onto your fingertips and brought it to your face. It was cold at first, shockingly so, as though the jar had been stored in a refrigerator, but it warmed quickly against your skin, melting into a slick, oily layer that spread easily across your cheeks and forehead. You worked it in with slow, deliberate strokes. The menthol tingled, a cool prickling sensation that made your skin feel alive, alert, like it was waking up in a way the soap alone could not achieve. It was not uncomfortable, but it was noticeable. You felt it working, or at least you believed you did. Noxzema was sold as a cleanser, a makeup remover, a treatment for blemishes, a soothing balm for sunburn. It promised everything and delivered just enough to keep women coming back. You did not know what the ingredients were. You did not care. The blue jar sat on your counter because your mother had a blue jar, and her mother before her. It was a rite of passage, a shared language among women who did not always talk about these things, but understood them nonetheless. Some women used it in the morning, applying it after washing with soap, massaging it into their skin like a second cleanse. Others saved it for night, slathering it on thick before bed, letting it sink in while they slept. A few used it as a mask, leaving it on for 10 or 15 minutes before wiping it away with a warm washcloth. There was no right way, no wrong way, just the way you did it, the way you had always done it, the way that felt like yours. You massaged the cream into your temples, your jawline, the sensitive skin beneath your eyes. The tingling continued, a gentle reminder that something was happening, that your skin was being cared for, even if you could not articulate exactly how. It felt clean. It felt fresh. It felt like you were doing something your mother would approve of. When you were finished, you reached for a tissue or a washcloth and wiped the excess away. Your skin was left with a faint sheen, slightly oily but not unpleasantly so. The menthol smell lingered, clinging to your face like a ghost of the ritual you had just performed. You screwed the lid back on the jar and returned it to its place on the counter. It would sit there until tomorrow, waiting patiently, always ready, always reliable. The blue jar was not glamorous. It did not promise miracles or transformation, but it was there. And for women in the 70s, that was enough. At night, after the dishes were done and the house had settled, women sat at their vanities and reached for cold cream. Pond's usually, though some swore by other brands. The cream was thick, heavy, and impossibly greasy, but it worked. The jar was substantial, glass and weighty, the kind of container that felt expensive even though it was not. You unscrewed the lid and dipped your fingers into the cream. It was dense, almost solid, a waxy white substance that clung to your fingertips like soft butter, left out too long. You brought it to your face and began to spread it. It did not absorb. It sat on top of your skin, a thick, slippery layer that coated everything, covering your makeup, your foundation, your powder, your lipstick. The cream warmed as you worked it in, melting into an oily film that turned your face into something unrecognizable, ghostly, stripped of colour and definition. This was the point. Cold cream was not meant to be elegant. It was meant to remove, to dissolve, to break down everything you had put on your face that morning and carry it away. You massaged it in with slow, circular motions, feeling the makeup lift beneath your fingers, the foundation that had sat on your skin all day, the powder that had settled into your pores, the mascara that had flaked onto your cheeks, all of it loosened and mixed with the cream, turning it grey and gritty. Your fingers moved across your face methodically, forehead, cheeks, nose, chin, around your eyes, gently, where the skin was thin and delicate, across your lips, where the lipstick had worn away hours ago but left behind a faint stain. You worked the cream into every corner, every crease, every place where makeup liked to hide. The process was slow, meditative almost. There was no rush. The house was quiet. The children were asleep. Your husband was watching television in the other room. This moment belonged to you. When your face was fully coated, slick and shining under the vanity lights, you reached for a tissue. Soft, white, 2-ply if you were lucky. You pressed it gently against your skin and wiped. The tissue came away streaked with beige and pink and black, a record of the day written in makeup and oil. You took another tissue, wiped again, more colour, more residue, another tissue, another wipe. The pile of used tissues grew on the vanity, each one a little cleaner than the last, a little closer to done. It took time, it took patience. But eventually your face was clean. Not perfectly clean, there was still a faint sheen of oil, a slight residue that clung stubbornly to your skin but clean enough. The makeup was gone, the day was washed away, what remained was just you. You looked at yourself in the mirror. Your skin was bare now, vulnerable, softened by the cream and the ritual of removal. You looked older without makeup, tired, but also real. This was the face no one else saw, the face that existed only here, in this quiet room, at the end of the day. Cold cream was not glamorous. It was messy, greasy, old-fashioned, even by 70s standards, but it worked. It removed everything. And for women who wore makeup every day, who painted themselves into someone presentable each morning, cold cream was the key that unlocked them each night. You wiped your fingers on a tissue, screwed the lid back onto the jar and set it aside. The vanity was cluttered now, littered with used tissues and smudged fingerprints. But your face was clean, and that was all that mattered. After cleansing came the toner, though most women just called it astringent. It came in a bottle, usually glass, and smelled sharp and medicinal. You soaked a cotton ball and swept it across your face, and it stung just enough to make you feel like it was working. The bottle sat on the bathroom shelf, half full, its label slightly faded from being handled with damp fingers. Sea breeze, witch hazel, some generic drugstore brand your mother bought because it was on sale. The name didn't matter as much as the promise, to tighten pores, to remove residue, to leave your skin feeling fresh and clean. You unscrewed the cap and poured a small amount onto a cotton ball. The liquid was clear, sometimes faintly tinted blue or green, and it smelled like rubbing alcohol mixed with something vaguely herbal. The scent was not pleasant, but it was purposeful. It smelled like medicine, like something that would fix you. You brought the cotton ball to your face and swiped. The astringent was cold, wet, shockingly astringent. It stung, not painfully, but enough to make you suck in a breath, enough to make your skin tighten and prickle. You swiped again, across your forehead, down your nose, over your cheeks. Each pass left your skin feeling tighter, cooler, more awake. The cotton ball came away dirty. Even after washing, even after wiping away the cold cream, there was still residue. The cotton showed it, streaked with faint traces of makeup, traces of oil, traces of the day you thought you had already washed away. It was proof that the astringent was necessary. Proof that you were not clean until you'd gone through every step. You kept swiping. Another cotton ball, another round. The astringent soaked into your skin, evaporating quickly, leaving behind a tight, dry feeling that bordered on uncomfortable. Your face felt stripped, as though every bit of oil, every trace of moisture had been pulled away. But that was the point. That was what toner did. It removed, it tightened, it closed your pores, or at least it claimed to. You did not know if pores could actually close. You did not know if the tightness meant anything beyond the alcohol evaporating from your skin. But it felt like it was doing something. And in the 70s, feeling was enough. Some women used toner morning and night. Others only at night after removing their makeup. A few skipped it, entirely finding it too harsh, too drying, too much. But most women kept a bottle on hand, reaching for it whenever their skin felt oily, or their pores felt too visible, or they simply needed to feel like they were taking care of themselves. The sting became familiar, expected even. It was part of the ritual, a small discomfort you endured because it meant you were doing it right. Skincare was not supposed to be entirely pleasant. It was supposed to work, and if it stung a little, well, that was just proof it was working. You capped the bottle and set it back on the shelf. Your face felt tight, dry, almost squeaky. The astringent had done its job. Now came the moisturizer, the step that would put some of that moisture back, that would soften the harshness, that would make your skin feel like yours again. But for now, you paused. You looked at yourself in the mirror, your face bare and tight and slightly red from the sting. This was the in-between. The moment after removing but before restoring. The moment when your skin belonged entirely to the ritual, suspended between what it was and what it would become. You took a breath. The scent of astringent still hung in the air, sharp and medicinal, and then you reached for the next jar, ready to continue. Moisturizer in the 70s was not layered or specialized. You did not have one for morning and another for night. You had one jar, maybe two if you were fancy, and you used it sparingly because it had to last. The jar sat on your dresser or your bathroom counter, modest and unassuming. Nivea in the blue tin, Pond's in the wide-mouthed glass jar. Olay, if you were willing to spend a little more. The labels were simple, the packaging plain. There were no promises of transformation, no claims about peptides or antioxidants or age-defying technology. Just cream, just moisture. You unscrewed the lid and dipped your fingers in. The cream was thick, rich, almost heavy. It did not spread easily. You had to warm it between your palms first, rubbing your hands together until the cream softened and turned slick. Only then did you bring it to your face. You applied it gently, pressing it into your skin rather than rubbing. Forehead first, then cheeks, then chin and nose. Your fingers moved slowly, deliberately, massaging the cream into places that felt dry or tight. Around your eyes, where the skin was thin and delicate. Along your jawline, where the astringent had left your skin feeling stripped. The cream sat on top of your skin for a moment before it began to absorb. It was not quick. It was not invisible. You could feel it there, a faint layer of richness that clung to your face, oily in some spots, almost greasy in others. But slowly, gradually it sank in. Your skin drank it up, and the tightness from the soap and the astringent began to ease. This was the restoration. the step that made everything else tolerable. Without moisturizer, your skin would feel raw, stripped, uncomfortable. With it, you felt almost normal again, almost like yourself. You didn't use much. A little went a long way, and the jar had to last. Money was tight, and buying a new jar every month was not an option, so you rationed. A small scoop in the morning, another at night. Just enough to keep your skin from feeling like paper, from cracking at the corners, from showing the wear of a day lived. Some women swore by one brand, others switched, trying whatever was on sale, whatever promised the most for the least. But the ritual was the same. Open the jar, warm the cream, apply, wait. Feel the tightness fade. Your mother used the same jar you did. So did your sister. So did your neighbour down the street. It was not glamorous. It was not luxurious. But it was reliable. And in a world that demanded so much, reliability mattered. You rubbed the last of the cream into your hands, smoothing it over your knuckles and cuticles. Nothing went to waste. Then you screwed the lid back on, wiped your fingers on a tissue, and looked at yourself in the mirror. Your face was no longer tight, no longer dry. It looked softer now, a little dewy, a little more alive. The cream had done its job. Not perfectly, not dramatically, but enough. Moisturizer in the 70s was not about indulgence. It was about necessity, about keeping your skin from drying out, from cracking, from showing too much of the wear that came with living. It was simple, it was humble, and it was enough. Some women skipped the expensive astringents entirely and reached for witch hazel instead. It cost almost nothing, came in a plain plastic bottle, and your mother probably kept it in the medicine cabinet next to the hydrogen peroxide and Band-Aids. The bottle was unpretentious, clear plastic, a simple label with black text. No promises of beauty or transformation, just witch hazel, distilled from the bark of a shrub, sold for pennies at the drugstore. It was the kind of thing your grandmother used, and her grandmother before that. A remedy passed down through generations, trusted not because of advertising, but because it worked. You poured it onto a cotton ball, and the smell hit you immediately. Slightly herbal, faintly earthy, with a sharpness that made your nose wrinkle. It was not a pretty smell, but it was honest. It smelled like something from the earth, something real. You swiped the cotton ball across your face, and the witch hazel went to work. It was astringent, yes, tightening and cooling, but it was gentler than the alcohol-based toners. It did not sting the way sea breeze stung. It did not leave your skin feeling stripped and raw. It tightened, yes, but softly, quietly. The cotton ball came away clean, or mostly clean. A faint trace of oil, perhaps, a hint of residue, but nothing dramatic, nothing that made you feel like you'd been failing at cleanliness all along. Witch hazel was not punishing, it was forgiving. Some women used it for everything. Sunburns, insect bites, razor burn. A splash of witch hazel on a cotton pad, pressed gently against irritated skin, soothing and cooling. It was a cure-all, or close enough. And because it was so cheap, you did not feel guilty using it liberally. Your mother swore by it. So did your aunt. So did the woman at the pharmacy who recommended it when you asked about toners. It was drugstore wisdom, the kind of knowledge that did not come from magazines or advertisements, but from women who had tried everything and settled on what actually worked. You kept the bottle in the medicine cabinet, tucked behind the aspirin and the cough syrup. It was not glamorous enough for the vanity, but it was always there, reliable and unassuming, ready to soothe and tighten and do its quiet work. In a world of products that promised miracles and delivered disappointment, witch hazel was refreshingly simple. It did not claim to transform you. It didn't promise eternal youth. It simply offered to help. And for women who needed help they could afford, that was enough. Vaseline was not just for cuts and scrapes. Women used it on their lips, their cuticles, their elbows, even their eyelashes if they were trying to make them grow. It was cheap, it lasted forever, and it worked. The jar sat on your nightstand or in your bathroom drawer, small and blue and slightly greasy from being opened with damp fingers. Petroleum jelly, the label said, though everyone just called it Vaseline. It was thick, clear, almost waxy, and it didn't absorb into your skin so much as sit on top of it, sealing in whatever moisture was already there. You unscrewed the lid and dipped your finger in. The jelly was dense, sticky, clinging to your skin in a way that felt both protective and slightly suffocating. You rubbed it between your fingers to warm it, then brought it to your lips. Your lips were chapped. They always were in winter, cracked and dry from the cold air and the habit of licking them too often. Chapstick helped, but Vaseline was better. You smoothed it across your lips, coating them in a thick, glossy layer that felt heavy but soothing. The jelly sealed the cracks, trapped the moisture, gave your lips a chance to heal. You used it on your cuticles too. Your hands were rough, worn from washing dishes and doing laundry and working in the garden. Your cuticles were ragged, prone to tearing, and no amount of lotion seemed to help. But Vaseline did. You rubbed a tiny amount into each cuticle before bed, massaging it in, letting it sink into the dry, cracked skin. By morning, your cuticles were softer. Not perfect, but better. Some women put it on their eyelashes, a thin layer applied with a fingertip smoothed along the lashes like mascara. It was supposed to make them grow, or at least that was the claim. You were not sure if it worked, but it did not hurt to try. And Vaseline was cheap enough that even if it did nothing, you were not out much. You used it on your elbows, your heels, anywhere your skin felt rough or dry or forgotten. A little dab, rubbed in, sealing in moisture. It left your skin feeling greasy, slick, slightly uncomfortable. But by morning the greasiness was gone, absorbed or rubbed off on the sheets, and your skin was softer. Vaseline was not elegant, it was not sophisticated, but it was reliable. It did what it promised. And for women who needed something that worked without costing much, Vaseline was a quiet miracle. If you read women's magazines in the 70s, you probably came across the idea of a milk bath. Cleopatra bathed in milk, they said, and so could you. It sounded glamorous, luxurious, the kind of thing movie stars did in their marble tubs. The magazines showed photographs of women reclining in bathtubs, their skin glowing, their hair perfectly arranged, surrounded by what looked like clouds of creamy white water. The captions promised soft skin, a radiant complexion, a touch of ancient beauty brought into your modern home. You stood in the grocery store aisle staring at the gallon of milk in your cart and wondered, could you really pour milk into your bathtub? Would it work? Would it stain? Would it smell? Most women never tried it. Milk was expensive. Baths were for cleaning, not for beauty experiments. And the idea of sitting in a tub full of milk felt wasteful, indulgent, faintly ridiculous. But some women did. Late at night, when the house was quiet and no one would interrupt, they filled the tub with warm water and poured in a quart of milk, not a gallon. That would have been too much, just enough to cloud the water, to make it look milky and soft. They lowered themselves into the water and waited. The milk swirled around them, silky and strange. It did not smell like much, just faint, slightly sweet, familiar. They soaked for 10 minutes, maybe 15, letting the milk do whatever it was supposed to do. When they got out, their skin felt soft, softer than usual. Maybe it was the milk, maybe it was just the warm water, maybe it was the ritual itself, the act of doing something special, something just for themselves. The milk bath remained a fantasy for most women, a beautiful idea that lived in magazines and dreams but rarely made it into actual bathtubs. But the fantasy mattered. It reminded women that beauty could be luxurious, that care could be indulgent, that they deserved softness, even if they could not always afford it. Before clay masks came in tubes with instructions, women made their own. Oatmeal and honey, egg whites, mashed avocado if you were feeling adventurous. You mixed them in the kitchen, applied them in the bathroom, and rinsed them off before anyone saw. The recipes came from magazines, from friends, from your mother who learned them from her mother. They were simple. A few ingredients you already had in the kitchen, a bowl, a spoon, 5 minutes of mixing. Oatmeal and honey was the most common. You ground the oatmeal into a rough powder using a blender or just your hands, crushing the flakes between your palms. You mixed it with honey, thick and golden and sticky, until it formed a paste. The paste smelled sweet, faintly nutty like breakfast. You stood in front of the bathroom mirror and spread the paste across your face with your fingers. It was thick, gritty, clinging to your skin in uneven clumps. You smoothed it out, covering your cheeks, your forehead, your chin, avoiding your eyes, avoiding your mouth. Then you waited. 10 minutes. 15 if you could stand it. The mask dried slowly, tightening your skin, pulling at your face in a way that felt both uncomfortable and satisfying. You could feel it working, or at least you believed you could. Some women used egg whites. They cracked an egg, separated the white, and whipped it into a froth. They painted it onto their faces with their fingers or a brush, layer after layer, until their skin was coated in a thin, sticky film. The egg white dried hard, almost like a second skin, tightening their pores, firming their cheeks. When they rinsed it off, their skin felt smooth, tight, different. Mashed avocado was a luxury. Avocados were not cheap, and using one for your face felt indulgent, almost wasteful. But if you had one that was too ripe to eat, soft and browning, you mashed it with a fork and spread it on your face. It was creamy, rich, soothing. It smelled like nothing, or maybe faintly green. And when you rinsed it off, your skin felt softer, more supple, as though it had been fed. Homemade masks were not perfect. They were messy, unpredictable, sometimes ineffective, but they were yours, made with your hands in your kitchen from things you understood, and in a world where so much was commercial and packaged and impersonal, that mattered. Magazines in the 70s sold a specific vision of beauty: clear skin, dewy cheeks, a complexion so flawless it looked airbrushed. But most women knew better. Skin was not perfect. It had texture, blemishes, the occasional breakout that no amount of Clearasil could erase overnight. You flipped through the pages of Vogue or 17, staring at the faces that stared back at you. Smooth, poreless, luminous. The models looked like they had never experienced a single clogged pore, never woken up with a red spot on their chin, never dealt with the uneven tone that came from too much sun or not enough sleep. But you knew it was not real. You knew about lighting, about makeup, about the magic that happened between the camera lens and the printed page. Still, it was hard not to compare. Hard not to look at your own face in the mirror and feel the gap between what you saw and what the magazines told you was possible. Your skin had freckles, small dark spots that appeared every summer and faded a little in winter, but never disappeared entirely. Your skin had texture, fine lines around your eyes when you smiled, a slight roughness across your forehead that no amount of moisturizer could smooth completely. Your skin had days when it looked good and days when it did not, when a pimple appeared out of nowhere or your complexion looked dull and tired no matter how much sleep you got. And you were not alone. Every woman you knew had her own relationship with her skin. Your sister complained about her oily T-zone. Your mother worried about the age spots on her cheeks. Your neighbour tried every product on the drugstore shelf, searching for something that would make her skin look like the women in the magazines. The myth of perfect skin was powerful because it was everywhere, in advertisements for soap and cold cream and foundation, in beauty columns that promised clear skin in 30 days if you just followed the right routine. In the way saleswomen at department store counters looked at your face with professional assessment, pointing out flaws you had not noticed before, offering products to fix problems you did not know you had. But perfection was not the point. Not really. The point was the pursuit, the trying, the belief that if you just used the right products, followed the right steps, committed to the right routine, you could get closer, maybe not perfect, but better, clearer, smoother, more like the ideal. So you kept trying. You washed your face every morning and every night. You used the Noxzema, the cold cream, the astringent. You moisturized. You treated blemishes with Clearasil dabbed directly on the spot, left to dry into a chalky white film. You drank water. You got sleep when you could. You did everything the magazines told you to do, and your skin remained imperfect. Beautifully, stubbornly, honestly imperfect. There were good days. Days when your skin looked clear and bright, when the light hit your face just right, and you caught a glimpse of yourself in the mirror and thought, yes, that is good. Days when you felt confident leaving the house without makeup, when you believed that maybe you did not need all the products and routines and efforts after all. And there were bad days. Days when nothing worked, when your skin betrayed you, when you wanted to hide under foundation and powder and the reassuring weight of trying harder next time. The myth of perfect skin was just that. A myth. But it was a powerful one. It kept women buying products, following routines, believing that perfection was possible if they just worked hard enough. And maybe that was the real point. Not the perfection itself, but the hope it represented. The belief that you could change, improve, become something closer to the ideal. You closed the magazine and set it aside. Your face stared back at you from the mirror. Imperfect, real, yours. And for now, that would have to be enough. Women in the 70s did not wear sunscreen the way we do now. SPF was something you used at the beach, maybe, if you remembered. Otherwise, you were outside in the sun, gardening, running errands, walking to the mailbox, and your skin absorbed every ray. The sun was not seen as an enemy. It was warmth. It was summer. It was the feeling of heat on your shoulders while you hung laundry on the line or weeded the garden or sat on the porch with a glass of iced tea. The sun felt good, and good things surely could not be harmful. You went outside without thinking about it, without sunscreen, without a hat, unless it was purely for fashion. Your arms were bare. Your face was exposed. The sun kissed your skin, and you let it, welcoming the warmth, the brightness, the way it made everything feel more alive. Tanning was desirable. A tan meant health, vitality, summer freedom. It meant you'd been outside, active, living. Pale skin was something to overcome, something to remedy by spending afternoons in the backyard, lying on a towel, turning yourself like a rotisserie chicken to ensure even coverage. Some women used baby oil. They slathered it on, thick and slick, before stretching out in the sun. The oil amplified the heat, made the tanning faster, left their skin glistening like something out of a magazine. It smelled like coconuts and summer and the kind of leisure that most women could only steal in small moments. Others used tanning lotions, products that promised to accelerate the browning, to help you achieve that golden glow faster. You rubbed the lotion into your skin, lay down on your towel and waited. The sun did the rest. No one talked about UV rays. No one mentioned melanoma or premature aging, or the long-term consequences of too much sun. Those conversations were years away, decades away. In the 70s, the sun was just the sun, a fact of life, a source of warmth and light, and the kind of tan that made you feel beautiful. But the damage was happening, slowly, invisibly, with every hour spent in the garden, every afternoon at the pool, every walk to the mailbox without protection. The sun was marking your skin, leaving behind evidence that would not show up for years. Your freckles darkened. Your skin developed a rough texture in places that used to be smooth. Fine lines appeared at the corners of your eyes, etched there by squinting in bright light. Age spots began to form, faint at first, barely noticeable, but there, always there. By the time you were 40, 50, 60, the damage was undeniable. Your skin told the story of every summer, every unprotected moment, every hour you spent outside believing the sun could only do good. The wrinkles were deep. The spots were prominent. Your skin had a weathered quality, a toughness that came from years of exposure. But in the 70s, that was still in the future. The damage was accumulating, but you did not see it yet. You only saw the tan, the glow, the warmth. And so you kept going outside, kept soaking up the sun, kept living as though your skin would forgive you forever. It would not. But you did not know that yet, and maybe in some ways that ignorance was a gift. It let you enjoy the sun without fear, without the constant calculation of risk and protection. It let you live in the moment, feeling the warmth on your skin, believing that some things were too good to be harmful. The sun was inevitable, and so, it turned out, was the damage. Teenagers in the 70s dealt with acne the same way teenagers always have, with frustration, embarrassment, and a rotating cast of drugstore solutions that promised miracles and delivered modest results at best. You stood in front of the mirror, staring at the red bump on your chin. It had appeared overnight, angry and swollen, impossible to ignore. You had felt it coming, that tender spot that warned you something was brewing beneath the surface, and now here it was, announcing itself to the world. Acne was not just a physical problem, it was social death. It was the fear of being seen, of being noticed for all the wrong reasons. It was the boy you liked looking at your forehead instead of your eyes. It was your mother sighing and saying you needed to wash your face more often, as though you had not already scrubbed your skin raw trying to make it better. The drugstore aisle offered solutions, rows and rows of products, each one promising to clear your skin, to banish blemishes, to give you the smooth complexion you desperately wanted. You tried them all, or at least it felt that way. Clearasil was the most popular. The tube sat on your bathroom counter, its cap slightly crusty from being opened too many times. You squeezed a dollop of the cream onto your fingertip and dabbed it directly on the pimple. The cream was thick, chalky, beige. It dried into a hard film that cracked when you moved your face. It was obvious, visible, a beacon announcing to everyone that you had acne and were trying to do something about it. But you wore it anyway, to school, to bed, hoping that by morning the pimple would be gone, or at least smaller. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes the redness faded, the swelling went down, the pimple retreated back into your skin as mysteriously as it had appeared. Other times, it did nothing. The pimple persisted, stubborn and defiant, ignoring your efforts entirely. You tried other products too, medicated pads soaked in salicylic acid that you swiped across your face, stinging and sharp. Benzoyl peroxide gels that bleached your pillowcases and left your skin dry and flaky. Sulfur masks that smelled like rotten eggs and turned your face yellow. You tried them all, cycling through products with the desperate hope that one of them eventually would be the answer. Your mother had advice. Wash your face more, stop touching it, change your pillowcase, do not eat chocolate or greasy food. The advice was well-meaning but not particularly helpful. You already washed your face twice a day. You tried not to touch it, though it was hard when the pimples itched and throbbed. You changed your pillowcase. You avoided chocolate. The acne remained. Some days were better than others. Some days your skin looked almost clear, just a few fading red marks, a few small bumps that could be covered with makeup. Those were good days, days when you felt almost normal, almost pretty, almost like the girls in your class who seemed to sail through adolescence with perfect skin. Other days were bad, days when new pimples appeared in clusters, when your forehead was a battlefield of red and white, when you wanted to stay home and hide, days when you stood in front of the mirror and cried, frustrated and exhausted and tired of fighting a war you could not win. Acne was isolating. It made you feel like you were the only one, even though you knew you were not. Other kids at school had acne too. You saw it on their faces, the red spots and the chalky Clearasil dots. But everyone pretended not to notice, just as you pretended your own acne was invisible. The search for a solution was endless. Every new product that appeared on the drugstore shelf was worth trying. Every tip from a friend or a magazine was worth following. You kept searching, kept hoping, kept believing that somewhere, somehow, there was a product that would finally fix you. And maybe one day your skin would clear. Maybe it would happen on its own, the way it did for some people, their hormones settling, their skin calming. Or maybe it would take years. Maybe the acne would follow you into adulthood, a stubborn companion that refused to leave. But for now, you stood in front of the mirror, dabbed Clearasil on the new pimple, and hoped for the best. That was all you could do. Some women swore by cleansing creams. Others thought they were too heavy, too greasy, not thorough enough. The debate played out in beauty columns and conversations between friends, each woman defending her method with quiet conviction. Cleansing cream sat somewhere between cold cream and soap, a middle ground that promised the thoroughness of washing without the harshness. It came in jars, thick and white, or in tubes that you squeezed onto your fingertips. The texture was rich but not quite as heavy as cold cream, softer but not quite as light as lotion. You unscrewed the jar and scooped a small amount onto your fingers. The cream was cool, smooth, slipping easily across your skin. You worked it in with circular motions, massaging it into your face, feeling it warm and soften as it mixed with your skin's natural oils. The cream was supposed to dissolve makeup, lift dirt, cleanse without stripping. It was gentler than soap, less drying, better for mature skin or skin that was sensitive or prone to irritation. You massaged it in, covering every inch of your face, then reached for a warm, damp washcloth. The washcloth was key. You pressed it against your face, feeling the warmth seep into your skin, then wiped. The cream came away, taking with it the day's accumulation of makeup and dirt and oil. You rinsed the washcloth, wrung it out, wiped again, another rinse, another wipe, until your face felt clean. But some women did not trust it. They believed that cream left residue, that it did not truly cleanse, that you needed the lather and the tightness of soap to know your face was really clean. They used cleansing cream occasionally maybe, but always followed it with soap. Double cleansing before the term existed, unwilling to trust that cream alone could do the job. The debate was quiet but persistent. At beauty counters, saleswomen asked what you used to cleanse. At coffee with friends, someone mentioned switching to cleansing cream and someone else said they tried it but went back to soap. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone believed their method was best. Your mother used cleansing cream. She had for years. Her skin was soft, relatively unlined for her age, and she credited the cream. No soap on her face, ever. Just cream, wiped away with a warm cloth, followed by her usual toner and moisturizer. Your sister used soap. She believed in the feeling of clean, that tight, squeaky sensation that soap provided. She tried cleansing cream once and hated it, said it made her face feel greasy, said she could still feel makeup on her skin even after wiping it away. You found yourself somewhere in the middle. You used cleansing cream sometimes, on nights when your skin felt dry or irritated, when the thought of soap seemed too harsh. Other nights you used soap, craving that familiar tightness, that proof that you had scrubbed away the day. There was no right answer, just preference, just the method that made sense to you, that felt right against your skin, that fit into the rhythm of your evening routine. The cleansing cream debate was not really about cream at all. It was about control, about choosing how to care for yourself, about finding the method that worked for you in a world that offered too many options and not enough guidance. You replaced the lid on the jar. Tomorrow you might use it again, or you might reach for the soap. Either way, your face would be clean, and that ultimately was all that mattered. If you wanted something fancier than drugstore skincare, you went to the department store. The beauty counter was its own world, staffed by women in crisp uniforms who treated cosmetics like sacred artifacts. The counter gleamed under bright lights, glass cases displaying rows of products arranged with museum-like precision. Lipstick stood in perfect lines, organized by shade. Compacts were stacked just so. Bottles of perfume caught the light, glowing like jewels. Everything looked expensive. Everything felt important. You approached hesitantly, aware of your drugstore clothes, your practical shoes, the fact that you were just browsing, not really buying. The woman behind the counter smiled, professional and appraising, taking in your face with a quick assessment of someone trained to see flaws and fix them. "Can I help you find something?" she asked. And you mentioned moisturizer. Or maybe you were just looking, unsure what you actually needed but drawn to the promise of something better than what you had at home. She asked about your skin type. Dry, oily, combination. You were not entirely sure. Your skin was dry in winter and oily in summer, normal the rest of the time. You said dry because that seemed safest, and she nodded knowingly. She reached beneath the counter and brought out a jar. The packaging was elegant, heavy glass with gold lettering. She unscrewed the lid and held it out for you to smell. The cream smelled expensive, faintly floral, nothing like the plain functional scent of Pond's. She dotted a bit of cream on the back of your hand and told you to rub it in. You did, feeling the rich texture, the way it absorbed more quickly than your drugstore cream, leaving your skin soft but not greasy. It felt luxurious. It felt like something you could not afford. She told you about the ingredients, words you did not fully understand but that sounded scientific and impressive. She told you this cream would hydrate, firm, smooth, fine lines. She made it sound like a small miracle in a jar. You asked the price. She told you, and your heart sank. It was more than you spent on groceries for a week. More than you could justify spending on yourself when there were other needs, other priorities, other people depending on you. But you wanted it. You wanted the jar with its gold lettering and its promise of luxury. You wanted to feel like the kind of woman who used department store skincare, who invested in herself, who believed she was worth the expense. Sometimes you bought it. You saved up, skipped lunches, justified it as a special occasion. You carried the bag, home carefully, the department store logo printed on the side, and you placed the jar on your bathroom counter like a trophy. Other times you said thank you and walked away, returning to the drugstore, to the Pond's and the Nivea and the products you could afford. You told yourself they work just as well. You told yourself the difference was not worth the price. But part of you always wondered. Part of you believed that the department store cream really was better, that the women who could afford it really did have softer skin, fewer lines, a glow that came from spending money on themselves without guilt. The beauty counter represented aspiration, a world where skincare was not just maintenance, but indulgence, where taking care of yourself was not practical, but luxurious, where you could be the kind of woman who deserved expensive cream in a beautiful jar. You walked past the counter on your way out, glancing back at the gleaming displays. Someday, maybe. Someday you would buy the expensive cream without hesitation. Someday you would believe you were worth it. But today was not that day. For women who had them, vanities were not just furniture. They were private altars where the day ended and the real self emerged. You sat down, turned on the lights, and began the process of undoing the day. The vanity sat in the corner of the bedroom, small and modest, with a mirror that reflected back more than just your face. It held your history, the jewellery box your grandmother gave you, the perfume bottle you bought on a rare trip to the city, the jar of cold cream you'd been using for months, its label worn from being handled with damp fingers. You pulled out the chair and sat down. The cushion was worn, compressed from years of use, but comfortable, familiar. This was your spot, your space, the place where you could be yourself without performance or pretense. You turned on the lights. They surrounded the mirror, small bulbs that cast a warm, even glow. The light was not harsh, not like the bathroom fluorescent that showed every flaw. This light was kinder. It softened the lines, blurred the imperfections, made you look almost the way you felt inside. You reached for the cold cream and began to remove your makeup. The process was slow, meditative. Each swipe of the tissue revealed more of your real face, the one hidden all day beneath foundation and powder, and the effort of looking presentable. This was the undoing, the shedding, the return to yourself. Around you, the bedroom was quiet. Your husband was already asleep, his breathing steady and rhythmic. The house had settled into its nighttime sounds, the creaks and sighs of a structure at rest. This moment belonged only to you. You wiped away the last of the makeup and looked at your bare face in the mirror, older than you felt, tired but honest. This was the face that no one else saw, the face that existed only in these private moments, stripped of artifice and expectation. You reached for your moisturizer and began to apply it, your fingers moving in the familiar pattern. Forehead, cheeks, chin, neck. The cream was cool, soothing, a small kindness you offered yourself at the end of a long day. The vanity held more than just beauty products. It held your secrets. The letter you had not yet answered, tucked into the drawer. The photograph of yourself from years ago, when your face was younger and your dreams felt more possible. The lipstick you bought on impulse and never wore because it was too bold, too bright, too much for the life you actually lived. This was where you kept the parts of yourself that did not fit into the rest of your day. The hopes, the regrets, the small vanities that gave the furniture its name. You brushed your hair, long strokes that smoothed and soothed. The brush was old, the bristles worn, but it had been your mother's, and using it connected you to her, to the long line of women who had sat at vanities like this, who had performed these same rituals, who had found solace in the quiet act of caring for themselves. When you were finished, you turned off the lights. The vanity disappeared into shadow and you slipped into bed. Tomorrow you would sit here again. Tomorrow you would put yourself back together, piece by piece, until you looked like someone who had everything under control. But tonight, you had let yourself come apart. And in the morning, you would be ready to begin again. Skincare knowledge in the 70s was passed down, mother to daughter, in quiet moments at the bathroom sink. Your mother showed you how to wash your face, how much cream to use, which products worked and which were a waste of money. You were 13, maybe 14, when your mother called you into the bathroom one evening. She stood at the sink, her face bare, her jar of cold cream open on the counter. "Come here," she said, and you did. Uncertain what this was about, but sensing it was important. She told you it was time you learned to take care of your skin properly. You were getting older, she said, and your skin needed attention, care, a routine. She spoke matter-of-factly, without embarrassment, as though teaching you to wash your face was as essential as teaching you to cook or sew. She showed you how to apply the cold cream, scooping it with your fingers, warming it between your palms, spreading it across your face in gentle circles. Not too hard, she said. Your skin is delicate. Treat it gently. You watched her hands, the way they moved with practiced ease, the way she knew exactly how much pressure to apply, which direction to move. Her face was familiar but different in this moment, without makeup, without the armour she wore for the world. She looked softer, more real. She handed you a tissue and showed you how to wipe away the cream, how to fold the tissue and use a clean section for each pass. Do not rub, she said. Pat, always pat. You copied her movements, wiping your own face, feeling the cream lift away, leaving your skin clean and bare. It felt strange, this ritual, this deliberate act of care. But it also felt right, like you were being let into a secret, a knowledge passed down through generations of women who had stood at sinks and tended to their skin in the quiet hours. Your mother reached for her moisturizer and showed you how to apply it. A little goes a long way, she said. You do not need much. Make it last. She talked as she worked, sharing the wisdom she had learned from her own mother. Which products were worth the money, which were not. How to tell if your skin was dry or oily or somewhere in between. How to treat a pimple without making it worse. Small pieces of knowledge, practical and essential, that she had carried with her for years and was now giving to you. This was not a formal lesson. There were no instructions written down, no steps to memorize. It was simply a moment shared, a mother teaching her daughter the things she would need to know, the things that mattered even if they seemed small. You asked questions. She answered. You tried the cream on your own face and she corrected your technique, guiding your hands, showing you the right way. When you were finished, she looked at you and smiled. Your skin will thank you, she said. Take care of it now, and it will take care of you later. You did not fully understand what she meant then. You were young, and your skin was smooth and resilient, capable of recovering from anything. But you nodded, and you remembered. And over the years, as you stood at your own sink and went through the motion she had taught you, you understood. This was the legacy, not the products themselves, but the ritual, the act of caring for yourself, of taking time each day to tend to your skin, to honour your body, to remember that you mattered. Years later, when you had a daughter of your own, you called her into the bathroom one evening. You stood at the sink, your jar of cold cream open on the counter, and you said, "Come here. It is time you learned." And the cycle continued. In many neighbourhoods, skincare came to your door. The Avon lady arrived with her catalogue and her samples, offering creams and lotions you could try before you bought. She came every few weeks, usually in the afternoon, her car pulling up to the curb, her bag heavy with catalogues and samples and the small luxuries she sold. She rang the doorbell and you invited her in, offering coffee, settling into the living room for a visit that was part business, part social call. The Avon lady was not just a saleswoman. She was a neighbour, a friend, someone who understood what women needed because she needed the same things herself. She knew your name, your children's names, which products you had bought last time and whether you had liked them. She opened her bag and brought out the catalogue, glossy pages filled with photographs of creams and lipsticks and perfumes. She turned the pages slowly, pointing out new products, special offers, items she thought you might like. Her voice was friendly but professional, practiced in the art of selling without pushing. She offered samples, small tubes and jars and packets, enough for you to try before committing to a full-size purchase. You could test the moisturizer, see if it agreed with your skin. You could try the lipstick, see if the colour suited you. There was no risk, no pressure, just the opportunity to discover something new. You looked through the catalogue while she talked. The prices were reasonable, more than drugstore but less than department store. The products looked nice, attractive packaging, appealing descriptions, and the convenience of having them delivered to your door was worth something. You ordered a few items, a new moisturizer, a lipstick in a shade you'd been wanting to try, maybe a perfume, something light and fresh for spring. The Avon lady wrote down your order in her notebook, her handwriting neat and efficient. She told you the products would arrive in a week or two. She would bring them by, and you could pay her then. No need for cash now, no complicated transactions. Just a simple order between neighbours. When she left, you felt a small thrill of anticipation. You had treated yourself, bought something just for you, and in a week or two those small luxuries would arrive at your door. The Avon lady represented something important. She made beauty accessible, brought it into neighbourhoods where women could not easily get to department stores, offered products at prices that felt manageable. She understood that women wanted to feel pretty, wanted to take care of themselves, but needed it to be easy, affordable, convenient. And she provided community. Those afternoon visits were not just about selling products. They were about connection, about taking a break from the work of the day to sit and talk and share the small details of life. She asked about your family. You asked about hers. You talked about the neighbourhood, the weather, the challenges of raising children and managing a household. When your order arrived, she brought it to your door with a smile. You paid her, and she handed you the bag of products, each one wrapped carefully, almost like gifts. You thanked her, and she promised to come back in a few weeks with the new catalogue. You closed the door and carried the bag to your bathroom. You unwrapped the moisturizer and opened it, smoothing a little onto the back of your hand. It smelled good. It felt luxurious. And it had been so easy, so simple, to bring this small bit of indulgence into your life. The Avon lady understood that. She understood that women needed beauty to come to them, to fit into their lives, to be within reach. And for that, she was more than just a saleswoman. She was a lifeline. Looking back, what stands out most about 70s skincare is how simple it was. No acids, no prescription treatments, no online reviews or ingredient breakdowns. You used what your mother used, or what your friend recommended, and you trusted it would be enough. There were no 10-step routines, no layering of serums and essences and treatments. You washed your face. You used toner if you wanted. You moisturized. That was it. 3 steps, maybe 4 if you counted removing makeup. Simple, manageable. Something you could do even when you were exhausted, even when the day had been too long, and all you wanted was to fall into bed. The products themselves were simple too: soap, cream, lotion. The ingredient list was short, often just a handful of items you could pronounce. There was no hyaluronic acid, no retinol, no niacinamide. Just basic ingredients doing basic work. Cleaning, moisturizing, protecting to the extent that anyone thought about protection. You did not spend hours researching products. You did not read reviews or watch tutorials or consult dermatologists about your routine. You walked into the drugstore, looked at the shelf and picked something. Maybe you asked the pharmacist for a recommendation. Maybe you bought what your mother used. Maybe you tried something new because the packaging caught your eye, and that was enough. You used the product. If it worked, you kept using it. If it did not, you tried something else. There was no analysis, no deep dive into why it worked or did not work. Just trial and error, practical and straightforward. The simplicity was freeing in ways you did not fully appreciate at the time. You did not worry about doing it wrong, about missing a step, about using products in the wrong order or at the wrong time. You didn't feel overwhelmed by choices or paralyzed by information. You simply did what needed to be done and moved on with your day. There was less pressure too, less expectation that your skin should be perfect, that aging should be prevented, that every flaw should be corrected. Your skin was allowed to be your skin. It was allowed to have texture, to show your age, to bear the marks of the life you had lived. Yes, women wanted to look their best. Yes, they tried to minimize flaws and maintain a youthful appearance. But there was an acceptance, a recognition that skin changed, that aging happened, that perfection was not the goal because perfection was not possible. You used your moisturizer faithfully morning and night. You washed your face before bed. You took care of yourself in the ways you knew how. And that was enough. Your skin was not flawless, but it was yours, and you learned to live with it, to care for it without obsessing over it, to accept that some things were beyond your control. The simplicity of less was not about deprivation. It was about focus, about having a few products you trusted and using them consistently, about not being distracted by every new trend or promised miracle, about finding what worked and sticking with it. In a world that would soon become overwhelmed with options, with information, with the pressure to do more and buy more and try harder, the 70s approach to skincare seems almost radical in its simplicity. You had a jar of cream, you had a bar of soap, you had a routine that took 5 minutes. And somehow, that was enough. Evening skincare was less about prevention and more about removal. You washed off the day, the makeup, the dust, the residue of hours spent moving through the world, and you went to bed with your face clean and bare. The day was ending. The house was quiet. You stood at the bathroom sink, the light above the mirror casting a soft glow, and you began the ritual of coming undone. First came the makeup removal. If you wore makeup, and most women did, you reached for your cold cream or cleansing cream. You scooped it onto your fingers, spread it across your face, and began the slow work of dissolving everything you had put on that morning. The foundation, the powder, the lipstick worn off hours ago but still clinging faintly to your lips. The cream warmed against your skin, melting the makeup, lifting it away. You worked it in with gentle circular motions, taking your time, not rushing. This was not a race. This was the quiet unwinding of the day, the shedding of the public self you'd worn for hours. You reached for a tissue and began to wipe. The tissue came away streaked with colour, evidence of the face you had presented to the world. You wiped again and again, until the tissues came away mostly clean, just a faint residue left behind. Then you washed, with soap and warm water, lathering and rinsing, washing away the cream and the last traces of makeup and the invisible grime of the day. Your face felt tight as you dried it, stripped and clean, ready for the next step. You applied toner if you used it. The cool, sharp liquid swept across your face, tightening your pores, removing the final traces of residue. It stung slightly, but the sting was familiar, almost comforting. It meant the day was washed away. It meant you were clean. Then came the moisturizer. You scooped a small amount from the jar and warmed it between your palms. You pressed it gently into your skin, massaging it in, feeling the tightness ease, feeling your face soften and relax. The moisturizer was the balm, the restoration, the thing that made the stripping and scrubbing bearable. Your evening routine was simple, predictable. The same steps every night, in the same order, a ritual so ingrained you could do it half asleep and sometimes did. But it mattered. It was the way you transitioned from the public world to the private one, from the face you showed others to the face that was yours alone. You brushed your teeth, you changed into your nightgown, you turned off the bathroom light, and you went to bed with your face clean and bare, ready for sleep, ready to let your skin breathe and rest and repair itself in whatever small ways it could. The evening routine was not glamorous, It was not indulgent. It was simply necessary. A way of taking care of yourself, of honouring your body, of marking the end of the day and the beginning of rest. And in the morning you would do it all again. Put your face back on. Step into the world. But for now, for these quiet hours, you were just yourself. Clean. Bare. Enough. Women in the 70s believed deeply in beauty sleep. Not in the modern sense, where sleep affects cellular repair and collagen production, but in the old-fashioned sense. Rest made you look better, and exhaustion showed on your face. Your mother said it all the time. You need your beauty sleep. She said it when you stayed up too late reading, when you talked on the phone past midnight, when you tried to squeeze one more hour out of the day, even though your body was begging for rest. Beauty sleep was not optional. It was essential. It was the difference between looking fresh and looking haggard, between facing the day with energy and dragging yourself through it with dark circles under your eyes. The science behind it didn't matter. No one talked about REM cycles or cellular regeneration, or the way sleep allowed your skin to repair itself at the molecular level. The belief was simpler, more intuitive. Sleep made you beautiful. Lack of sleep made you tired. And tired showed on your face in ways that no amount of makeup could fully hide. You saw it in the mirror on mornings after bad nights. Your skin looked dull, almost grey. Your eyes were puffy, shadowed with dark circles that makeup could cover but never quite erase. Your face looked drawn, older, as though the single night of poor sleep had aged you years, and you felt it too. The exhaustion that lived in your bones, the heaviness that made every movement feel like effort. You moved through the day like you were walking through water, slow and weighted, your thoughts foggy, your patience. Beauty sleep was as much about how you felt as how you looked. When you were well rested, you had energy. You smiled more easily. You carried yourself differently, with a lightness that made you seem younger, more vibrant, more alive. That vitality showed on your face, in your eyes, in the way your skin seemed to glow from within. Your grandmother believed in beauty sleep too. She went to bed early, always, no matter what was happening in the house. 9 o'clock, she said, and she meant it. She would wash her face, put on her nightgown, and disappear into her room, emerging the next morning looking refreshed, her skin smooth and soft despite her years. She swore that sleep was the best beauty treatment, better than any cream or lotion or expensive department store product. Sleep costs nothing, she said, and it does more for your face than anything you can buy. You tried to follow her example. You went to bed at reasonable hours, turned off the lights, let yourself sink into sleep. Some nights it worked. You slept deeply, dreamlessly, waking the next morning feeling restored. Those were the mornings when your face looked its best, when your skin seemed clearer, when you caught a glimpse of yourself in the mirror and thought, yes, I look good. Other nights sleep was elusive. You lay awake, your mind racing, replaying the day, worrying about tomorrow, unable to turn off the thoughts that kept you tethered to wakefulness. You stared at the ceiling, watching shadows move across the walls, listening to the house settle around you. And in the morning, your face told the story of the night you had endured. The dark circles were the worst. They appeared like bruises, shadowing the delicate skin beneath your eyes, making you look sick, sad, older than you were. You tried to hide them with concealer, dabbing it on with your fingertip, blending it carefully. But the concealer only did so much. It lightened the circles but did not erase them. Anyone looking closely could see you were tired. Your eyes were puffy too, swollen in a way that made them look smaller, heavier. You splashed cold water on your face, hoping to reduce the swelling, but it helped only a little. The puffiness lingered, a visible reminder that you had not slept enough, that your body was suffering, that beauty sleep was not just a saying, but a truth. The belief in beauty sleep was powerful because it was true. You could see the evidence every time you looked in the mirror. Sleep made you look better. Exhaustion made you look worse. It was simple, undeniable, and no product, no matter how expensive or how well formulated, could replace the restorative power of a good night's rest. So you tried. You went to bed earlier. You created routines, small rituals that signaled to your body that it was time to sleep. You dimmed the lights, turned off the television, slipped into bed with the intention of giving yourself the gift of rest. Because beauty sleep was not just about vanity, it was about care, about honouring your body's need for restoration, about recognising that you could not pour from an empty cup, that you needed rest to function, to feel like yourself, to face the world with the energy and presence it demanded. And on the mornings when you woke refreshed, when your face looked bright and your eyes were clear, you understood. Beauty sleep was real, and it was one of the few beauty treatments that actually delivered on its promise. Skincare was not expensive in the 70s, not the way it is now. A jar of Pond's cost $1, maybe $2. Noxzema was affordable. Even the fancier department store creams were within reach if you saved up. The word vanity carried weight. It meant caring about your appearance, yes, but it also implied something frivolous, something self-indulgent, something you should not spend too much time or money on. Women were allowed to care for their skin, expected to even, but there were limits, invisible lines you did not cross. You stood in the drugstore aisle, looking at the prices on the jars and bottles. Soap was cheap. Moisturizer was reasonable. Even the products marketed as luxuries, the ones with prettier packaging and more elaborate promises, were affordable on a household budget. You could buy what you needed without guilt, without feeling like you were taking money away from something more important. But there was always a calculation, always a weighing of needs against wants. The moisturizer cost $2. The children needed new shoes. The car needed gas. The grocery bill was higher this week. Could you justify spending $2 on yourself? Most of the time, yes. Moisturizer was not a luxury. It was a necessity. Your skin was dry. You needed something to keep it from cracking, from aging faster than it already was. $2 was reasonable, justifiable. You bought the moisturizer without too much guilt. But the department store cream was different. That was vanity. That was spending $10, $15 on a single jar of cream when the drugstore version cost a fraction of that and probably worked just as well. That was indulgence. That was caring too much about your appearance, about looking younger, about the small vanities that women were supposed to rise above. You wanted it anyway. You wanted the beautiful jar, the elegant packaging, the feeling of treating yourself to something special. You wanted to believe that the expensive cream really was better, that it would make your skin softer, your lines less visible, your reflection in the mirror more like the woman you still felt like inside. Sometimes you bought it. You saved up, skipping small luxuries throughout the month, putting aside $1 here and there until you had enough. You walked into the department store, approached the beauty counter, and made your purchase with a mixture of excitement and guilt. The guilt came from knowing you could have spent that money elsewhere. On your children, on your husband, on the household, on anything other than yourself. The guilt came from the belief, deeply ingrained, that women were supposed to sacrifice, to put others first, to consider their own needs only after everyone else's had been met. But the excitement was real too. The small thrill of doing something just for you. The pleasure of carrying the bag home, of unwrapping the jar, of placing it on your bathroom counter where you would see it every day. The satisfaction of using it, of smoothing the expensive cream onto your skin, of indulging in the ritual of caring for yourself. Your husband did not understand. He saw the jar on the counter and asked how much it cost. You told him, and he frowned. "That's a lot for a face cream," he said. "Does it really work better than the cheap stuff?" You did not know how to answer. You did not know if it worked better. You knew it felt better. You knew it made you feel cared for, special, worth the expense. But those were not things you could quantify. Those were not things he would understand. So you said, "It's supposed to be good for aging skin." And he nodded, accepting the explanation, even if he did not really understand why it mattered. The cost of vanity was not just financial, it was emotional. It was the guilt of spending money on yourself. It was the judgment, real or imagined, from people who thought you cared too much about your appearance. It was the constant negotiation between wanting to look good and not wanting to seem vain. But you kept buying the moisturizer. You kept washing your face every night. You kept caring for your skin, even when it felt frivolous, even when it felt self-indulgent, even when part of you believed you should be spending that time and money elsewhere. Because caring for your skin was not really about vanity. It was about dignity, about feeling like yourself, about holding on to some small piece of control in a life that often felt beyond your control. The moisturizer was not just cream, it was a quiet act of self-respect, and that you decided was worth the cost. For many women, skincare was not just about appearance, it was about control. In a world that demanded so much of them, their morning and evening routines were small acts of autonomy, moments when they could tend to themselves without interruption or judgment. Your day was not your own. It belonged to your children, your husband, your job, your household, the endless list of tasks and obligations that filled every waking hour. You moved through the day responding to needs, solving problems, managing crises, giving pieces of yourself away until there was almost nothing left. But the bathroom was different. The bathroom was yours. When you closed the door and stood at the sink, when you unscrewed the jar of cold cream and began to wipe away your makeup, you were doing something just for you, something that no one else needed. Something that served no purpose except to care for your own body, your own face, your own self. It was a small rebellion, a quiet claiming of space and time. For 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long the routine took, you were not a mother or a wife or an employee. You were just a woman, standing at a sink caring for her skin. The ritual gave you control. You decided when to wash your face. You decided which products to use. You decided how long to spend, how thorough to be, what your skin needed on any given day. No one else dictated these choices. No one else had a say. It was entirely, completely yours. And in that control was a kind of power. The power to care for yourself. The power to prioritize your needs, even if just for a few minutes. The power to say that you mattered, that your body deserved attention, that you were worth the time it took to smooth cream onto your face and massage it in with gentle fingers. Your skin was also a record. It showed where you had been, what you had endured, the years you had lived. The fine lines at the corners of your eyes told stories of laughter and squinting in the sun. The age spots on your cheeks were evidence of summers spent outside, of days when sunscreen did not exist or did not matter. The texture, the unevenness, the places where your skin had changed, they were all part of your history. You looked at your face in the mirror and saw yourself aging, saw the girl you'd been disappearing, replaced by the woman you were becoming. It was jarring sometimes, catching sight of your reflection and not recognizing yourself immediately. When did that line appear? When did my skin start to sag just there? But your skin was also proof that you had survived, that you had lived through the challenges, the heartbreaks, the exhausting years of raising children and managing a household and working and trying to hold everything together. Your skin showed the wear, yes, but it also showed the resilience, the strength. the stubborn refusal to be broken by the life you had been given. Caring for your skin was a way of honouring that. A way of saying, I see you. I see what you have endured, and I will care for you anyway. It was also a way of maintaining identity. In a world that often reduced you to roles, mother, wife, worker, caretaker, your skincare routine reminded you that you were still a person, still an individual, still someone with needs and preferences and the right to take care of herself. You were not just a body that served others. You were a woman with skin that needed moisturizing, with a face that deserved attention, with a self that required tending. The ritual affirmed that. Every night, every morning, every time you stood at the sink and went through the familiar motions, you were reminding yourself that you existed, that you mattered, that you were more than the sum of your obligations. Skincare was not frivolous. It was not vain. It was an act of self-preservation, a way of holding on to yourself in a world that constantly tried to take pieces of you away, a way of saying, this is mine, this time, this ritual, this body, mine. And in the moments when you felt lost, when the demands of life became too much, when you were not sure who you were anymore beneath all the roles you played, you could go to the bathroom, close the door, stand at the sink, and through the simple act of washing your face, of caring for your skin, you could find yourself again. By the end of the 70s, things were beginning to change. New products appeared on drugstore shelves. Magazines started talking about ingredients, not just brand names. The simplicity that defined the decade was starting to crack, making way for something more complicated. You noticed it first in the magazines. The beauty columns that used to offer straightforward advice, use cold cream, moisturize daily, get enough sleep, were becoming more technical. They talked about pH balance and collagen, and products formulated for specific concerns. Words you did not fully understand, but that sounded scientific, important, like you were supposed to know what they meant. The drugstore changed too. New brands appeared, taking up space on the shelves. The packaging was sleeker, more modern, with bold claims printed across the front. Anti-aging, wrinkle-reducing, clinically tested. The promises were bigger, more specific, more aggressive. You stood in the aisle looking at the new products alongside the old ones. The Pond's and Noxzema were still there, familiar and comforting. But next to them were these new creams with unfamiliar names, products that claimed to do more than just moisturize. They promised transformation, results, visible improvement. Part of you was intrigued. Part of you wanted to believe that skincare could do more, be more, that there were solutions you had not yet discovered. You picked up one of the new jars, read the label, tried to understand what made it different from the cream you'd been using for years. But part of you resisted. Part of you mourned the simplicity that was slipping away. The days when skincare was just soap and cream, and the belief that if you took care of yourself, that was enough. The days when you did not have to think about ingredients or formulations, or whether you were using the right products in the right order. The shift was gradual but undeniable. More products, more steps, more information, more pressure to do it right, to keep up, to invest in your skin before it was too late. The magazines reinforced it. They ran articles about women who looked younger than their age, crediting their youthful appearance to rigorous skincare routines and expensive products. They showed before and after photos, dramatic transformations that promised you could look like that too if you just tried hard enough. Your friends started talking about it. One mentioned she was using a new night cream with retinol. Another said her dermatologist recommended a vitamin C serum. A third was experimenting with alpha hydroxy acids, whatever those were. The conversations that used to be simple, I use Pond's, what do you use, were becoming more complicated, more competitive, more laden with the implication that you should be doing more. You felt the pressure building, The sense that what you were doing was no longer enough, that the simple routine you had relied on for years was outdated, insufficient, naive, that if you wanted to keep your skin looking good, if you wanted to prevent aging, if you wanted to be the kind of woman who took care of herself properly, you needed to do more. But you also felt a resistance, a stubbornness, a refusal to believe that everything you'd been doing was wrong just because someone had invented a new product and decided to market it aggressively. Your mother still used Pond's. It had worked for her for 40 years. Her skin was fine. Better than fine. She looked good for her age, and she had never used anything fancier than drugstore cream and soap. But the world was changing. The 80s were coming, bringing with them a new era of skincare, an era of science and innovation and consumerism, an era that would make the simple routines of the 70s seem almost quaint, a relic of a time when women didn't know better. You stood in the drugstore aisle holding the new cream in one hand and your familiar Pond's in the other. The choice felt symbolic, a decision not just about which product to buy, but about which era you belonged to, whether you would embrace the change or hold on to the simplicity you had always known. In the end, you bought both. The Pond's because it was reliable, the new cream because you were curious, because maybe it would work, because maybe the world was changing and you needed to change with it. But as you carried the bag home, you felt a small sadness. The simplicity was ending, and you were not sure what would take its place. As skincare evolved into the multi-billion-dollar industry we know today, something was lost. Not the products themselves, those improved, but the quiet simplicity of the ritual, the trust in a single jar of cream, the belief that less could be enough. You stand in a modern drugstore now, decades later, and the difference is overwhelming. The skincare aisle stretches endlessly, packed with hundreds of products, each one promising something specific, something targeted, something you apparently need. Cleansers, toners, essences, serums, treatments, moisturizers, eye creams, neck creams, masks, exfoliants. The list goes on. The packaging is sleek, scientific, covered in claims about peptides and ceramides and niacinamide. The prices have climbed. What used to cost $2 now costs $20, $40, $60, and you're told this is normal. This is what skincare costs now. This is what you should be spending if you care about your skin. The routines have expanded too. 10 steps, 12 steps, morning routines that take 30 minutes, evening routines that require planning and precision. You're supposed to layer products in a specific order, wait between applications, use different products for different concerns. It is a job, a part-time job that you perform twice a day, every day, without pay and without end. And the pressure is immense. The message, delivered through advertising and social media, and the perfectly smooth faces of influencers is clear. If you do not do all of this, if you do not invest in your skin, if you do not follow the routine and buy the products and commit to the process, you will age badly. You will look older than you should. You will have failed at the basic task of maintaining yourself. The simplicity of the 70s feels impossibly distant now. The idea that you could wash your face with soap, apply a single moisturizer, and call it done seems almost laughably naive, as though those women did not know any better, as though they were simply ignorant of what skin needed, what it could be, what it should be. But they knew something we have forgotten. They knew that skincare was not meant to be complicated. It was not meant to be expensive. It was not meant to consume your time and energy and mental space. It was meant to be simple, a quiet ritual, a small act of care that fit easily into the rhythms of daily life. They knew that a jar of Pond's and a bar of soap were enough, that you did not need 20 products to have healthy skin, that the most important things, sleep, water, protection from the sun when you remembered, were free and accessible to everyone. They knew that aging was natural, that skin changed over time, that wrinkles and spots and texture were part of being human, part of living a full life, part of the evidence that you had survived. They didn't believe aging could be prevented, only delayed slightly, managed with care but not erased. And they knew that their worth was not tied to their skin, that they were valuable, lovable, enough, regardless of whether their faces were smooth or lined, whether their complexion was perfect or imperfect, whether they looked younger or older than their years. What we lost was not about the products. It was about the peace, the acceptance, the belief that simple care was sufficient, the freedom from the constant pressure to do more, buy more, try harder. We gained science, we gained innovation, we gained products that actually work, that deliver results, that can genuinely improve skin in ways that soap and cold cream never could. And those are real gains. Those matter. But we lost the simplicity. We lost the ritual that took 5 minutes and required no thought. We lost the trust in a single jar of cream. We lost the belief that we were doing enough just by showing up, by caring for ourselves in the small, quiet ways we knew how. And maybe sometimes late at night when you're tired and the 10-step routine feels like too much, you remember. You remember your mother at the sink with her ponds. You remember your grandmother washing her face with soap and looking beautiful anyway. You remember the 70s when skincare was simple and sufficient and somehow, despite everything we know now, enough. And you wonder if we could go back, if we could reclaim that simplicity, if we could trust again that less might be enough, that we might be enough, that the quiet ritual of caring for ourselves without pressure or performance might be the most important thing we lost along the way. Time left marks on your skin that no cream could fully erase. The lines that formed at the corners of your eyes, the softening along your jawline, the way your skin changed texture, becoming thinner, drier, more fragile with each passing year. You noticed it gradually, not all at once, but in small moments scattered across months and years. A new line that appeared seemingly overnight, a spot that darkened despite your efforts, the way your skin no longer bounced back the way it used to, holding the impression of your pillowcase longer each morning. You stood in front of the mirror and touched your face, tracing the lines with your fingertips. These were not the flaws the magazines talked about. These were not problems that needed fixing. These were the marks of time, evidence of a life lived. The lines by your eyes came from smiling, from squinting in the sun, from decades of expression. The softness at your jaw came from gravity, from the natural settling that happened when skin lost its elasticity. Your mother had these same marks. You remembered looking at her face when you were young, noticing the lines and thinking she looked old. Now you understood. She was not old. She was just your age, or close to it. And the lines were not ugliness. They were her face, the only face she had, the one she'd earned through years of living. The magazines told you to fight aging, to resist it, to use products that would firm and lift and restore. The advertisements showed women with impossibly smooth skin, ageless and perfect, and implied that you too could look like that if you just tried hard enough, spent enough money, committed to the routine. But you knew better. You knew that aging was not a fight you could win. It was a process you could only move through, with grace if you were lucky, with resistance if you were not. The creams helped, yes. They kept your skin softer, more moisturized, perhaps slightly more resilient. But they did not stop time. They did not reverse the natural progression of skin becoming what it was always meant to become. You thought about your grandmother. She had lived to 87, her face deeply lined, her skin paper-thin and spotted. But she had been beautiful. not despite her age, but because of it. Her face told stories. It showed her laughter, her sorrows, her resilience. Every line was earned. Every spot was evidence of summers spent outside, of years lived fully. She had never fought her aging. She had simply accepted it, continuing her simple routine of soap and cream and the belief that she was enough as she was. She did not hide from mirrors. She did not mourn her youth. She simply moved forward, carrying her years with dignity. You wanted that. You wanted to age the way she did, without fear, without the constant pressure to look younger than you were. You wanted to accept your face as it changed, to see the lines as evidence of life rather than failure. But it was hard, harder than you expected, because the world did not value aging women. The world wanted you young, or at least young-looking. It wanted you to hide the evidence of time, to smooth away the years, to present a face that denied your actual age. Your husband told you that you looked beautiful, but sometimes you caught him looking at younger women, at their smooth skin and tight faces, and you wondered if he was comparing, if he noticed your lines and wished they were not there, if he missed the face you used to have. You asked him once, late at night, whether he thought you looked old. He seemed surprised by the question. "You look like you," he said. "Like yourself, just older, and I like your face. I know your face." It was not the reassurance you were looking for. You wanted him to say you looked young, that the years had not touched you, that you were as beautiful now as you'd been at 20. But his answer was better, more honest. You looked like yourself. And he knew your face, the lines and all. The texture of time was not smooth. It was uneven, marked, changed. Your skin showed where you had been, what you had survived, the years you had carried. It was not the skin of a young woman anymore. It was the skin of someone who had lived. And slowly, gradually, you were learning to accept that. To see your face not as a problem to be solved, but as a record to be honoured. The lines were yours, the spots were yours, the texture was yours, and they told the truth about your life in a way that no amount of cream or treatment ever could. You smoothed moisturizer onto your face, the same simple routine you had done for decades. The cream would not erase the lines, it would not stop the aging, but it would care for your skin, nourish it, help it through another day, and maybe you thought that was enough, not fighting time, not denying it, just moving through it with care, with dignity, with the simple belief that your face, however it changed, was still yours, still beautiful, still enough. Not every woman had a skincare routine. Not every woman had access to products or time or the belief that caring for her skin mattered. Some women simply washed their faces with whatever soap was available and moved on with their day. You knew women like this. Your aunt, who worked double shifts at the factory and came home too exhausted to do anything but fall into bed. Your neighbour, who raised 5 children on a tight budget and could not justify spending money on cold cream when there were mouths to feed. Your co-worker, who dismissed the whole idea of skincare as frivolous, unnecessary, something vain women did when they had nothing better to worry about. These women washed their faces, yes, but there was no ritual, no routine, no jars of cream or bottles of toner lined up on bathroom counters, just soap, water, and the towel that was already hanging there, quick and functional, nothing more, and their skin showed it. Or did it? You looked at their faces and saw lines, yes, texture, dryness, the effect of sun and work and years lived without protection or particular care. But you also saw strength, resilience, faces that had weathered life without complaint, without the luxury of worrying about fine lines or age spots. Your aunt's face was deeply lined, especially around her eyes and mouth. The lines came from years of hard work, from squinting under factory lights, from the stress of making ends meet on wages that never quite stretched far enough. She did not use moisturizer. She did not have time for it. She barely had time to sleep. But when she smiled, her whole face transformed. The lines deepened, yes, but they framed her smile in a way that made it more genuine, more earned. Her face told the truth about her life. It didn't hide the difficulty, but it also showed the joy she found despite everything. Your neighbour's skin was rough, weathered from years of hanging laundry outside and gardening without sunscreen, and standing at the stove in steamy kitchens. Her hands were worse, chapped and cracked. The hands of someone who spent her days in water and work. She complained sometimes about how dry her skin was, but she never did anything about it. There was always something more important, always someone else who needed something. You offered her some of your moisturizer once. She thanked you but never used it. It sat on her bathroom counter, unopened, until one of her daughters took it years later. It was not that she did not appreciate the gesture. It was that caring for her own skin simply was not a priority. It was not even on the list of things that mattered. Your co-worker was different. She had the time and the money for skincare. She simply did not believe in it. She thought the whole industry was a scam, preying on women's insecurities, selling them products they did not need to solve problems that were not really problems. She washed her face with regular soap. She did not moisturize. She did not use sunscreen. She went outside with her face bare, exposed to sun and wind and weather, and she did not care. Her skin was what it was. She was what she was, and she refused to spend energy worrying about it. Her skin looked older than yours, you noticed. More lined, more spotted, rougher in texture, but she seemed unbothered. She never looked in mirrors longer than necessary. She never complained about her appearance. She simply lived her life without the constant background worry about whether her skin was aging well. Part of you envied her. The freedom of not caring. The mental space that opened up when you stopped thinking about your skin, stopped evaluating it, stopped trying to improve it. She spent that energy elsewhere, on her work, her hobbies, her relationships, on things that mattered more than whether her face showed her age. But part of you could not imagine it. Your skincare routine was so ingrained, so much a part of who you were, that abandoning it felt impossible. It was not just about vanity, it was about care, about ritual, about the small ways you tended to yourself. The women who went without reminded you that skincare was not universal. It was not essential in the way food and shelter were essential. It was a choice, a luxury, even if it was an affordable one. And some women made different choices. They spent their time and energy and money on other things, and their lives were full anyway. Their faces told different stories. Stories of work and sacrifice and priorities that did not include moisturizer. And those stories were valid too, beautiful too in their own way. You continued your routine. You washed your face, used your cream, tended to your skin with the same care you always had. But you thought about the women who went without, and you wondered if their freedom was worth the lines, if their peace was worth the roughness, if maybe sometimes caring less meant living more. You did not have an answer. You only had your own face, your own routine, your own choices, and the quiet understanding that there were many ways to be a woman, many ways to move through the world, and skincare was just one small part of a much larger story. The mirror never lied. It showed you exactly what you looked like, without filters or soft focus or flattering light. Every morning, every evening, you faced yourself with unflinching honesty. The bathroom mirror was not kind. The light above it was bright and direct, designed for precision, for applying makeup and plucking eyebrows and seeing every detail of your face. It did not forgive. It did not soften. It simply showed the truth. You stood there every morning, barefaced and vulnerable, and looked at yourself. Really looked. Not the quick glance you gave mirrors throughout the day, but a real examination. You saw the new lines that had appeared, the spots that had darkened, the texture that had changed, the ways your face was different from the face you remembered. Sometimes it was hard. Sometimes you saw only the flaws, the imperfections, the evidence of aging that you could not stop. You focused on the lines around your eyes, the deepening crease between your eyebrows, the softness developing along your jaw. You compared yourself to younger women, to your own younger face, to the impossible standards set by magazines and movies. Other times you saw something different. You saw your mother's face emerging in your own features. You saw the resemblance to your grandmother, the way your eyes had the same shape as hers, the way your smile created the same pattern of lines. You saw continuity, connection, the physical evidence of where you came from. The mirror showed you who you were becoming. Not just older, but more yourself. The features that were uniquely yours became more pronounced with age. The shape of your face, the set of your eyes, the curve of your mouth, all of it more defined, more distinct, more unmistakably you. Your daughter sometimes stood beside you at the mirror. She was young, her skin smooth and unlined, her face still forming into what it would eventually become. She looked at her reflection with the critical eye of youth, seeing flaws where you saw perfection, worrying about blemishes that were barely visible. You wanted to tell her to be kinder to herself, to appreciate her skin while it was young and resilient, to stop looking for problems and just see her own beauty. But you knew she would not listen. You had not listened at her age either. You'd been just as critical, just as blind to your own beauty. Instead, you stood beside her and tended to your own face, showing her through your actions what it meant to care for yourself without obsession, to acknowledge aging without fear, to use the mirror as a tool for care rather than criticism. The mirror witnessed your most private moments. It saw you without makeup, without the face you presented to the world. It saw you tired and vulnerable and completely yourself. It saw you cry when life was hard. It saw you smile when you were truly happy. It reflected back not just your appearance, but your emotions, your humanity, your realness. You learned to make peace with the mirror, not to love what you saw always, but to accept it, to acknowledge that this was your face, the only one you had, and it was changing in ways you could not control. The mirror would show those changes whether you wanted to see them or not. So you chose to see them with as much kindness as you could manage. Some days that kindness came easily. You looked in the mirror and thought, I look tired, but that's okay. I am tired. Or I'm aging, but that's natural. Everyone ages. You gave yourself the grace you would give a friend, the understanding that you were human and imperfect and doing your best. Other days the kindness was harder. The mirror reflected back every insecurity, every fear about aging and worth and attractiveness. You looked at your reflection and felt the weight of expectations, the pressure to look younger, the fear that your changing face made you less valuable. But you kept looking. You kept facing the mirror, morning and evening, standing in front of it and tending to your skin. Because avoiding the mirror did not change anything. Your face was still there, still changing, still aging. And learning to see it with honesty, with acceptance, with as much kindness as you could manage, was part of the work of being human. The mirror never lied, and maybe that was its greatest gift. It forced you to see yourself clearly, to confront the reality of your own face, to make peace with the person looking back at you. It was not always comfortable. It was not always easy, but it was real. And in a world full of filtered images and impossible standards, that realness mattered. You finished your routine, turned off the bathroom light, and left the mirror behind. Tomorrow you would return. Tomorrow you would face yourself again. And the mirror would still be there, honest and unchanging, ready to show you the truth. Your mother had her favourites, products she had used for decades and would defend against any argument. She knew what worked for her skin, and no amount of new science or clever marketing would convince her to change. Pond's cold cream sat on her vanity, the jar slightly dented from years of use. She had been using it since before you were born, since before she was married, since she was a young woman learning how to care for her skin from her own mother. The ritual was sacred to her. Every night, without fail, she sat at her vanity and removed her makeup with cold cream, wiping it away with tissues, the pile growing as her face emerged clean and bare. She tried other products over the years. Someone gave her a fancy French cream as a gift once. She used it politely until the jar was empty, then returned to her Pond's without comment. The French cream was fine, she said, but it was not what her skin knew. It was not what worked. You asked her once why she was so loyal to Pond's. She thought about it for a moment, her hand resting on the familiar jar. It does what I need it to do, she said. It removes my makeup. It does not irritate my skin, and I trust it. I have been using it for 40 years. Why would I change now? Her reasoning was simple but unshakable. She had found what worked, and she saw no reason to keep searching. The constant churn of new products, the endless promises of better and newer and more effective did not interest her. She had what she needed. She also swore by witch hazel. The bottle sat in her medicine cabinet, plain and unpretentious, used morning and night after cleansing. It tightened her pores, she said. It made her skin feel clean. It cost almost nothing and lasted for months. Perfect. You used different products. You experimented with new brands, tried the latest formulations, followed the recommendations in magazines. You thought your mother was stubborn, old-fashioned, unwilling to adapt to new information. But as you got older, you began to understand. There was wisdom in her loyalty. She had eliminated the anxiety of choice. She did not stand in drugstore aisles wondering which product to buy. She did not second-guess her routine or worry that she was missing out on something better. She knew what worked for her, and she stuck with it. The mental freedom that gave her was valuable in ways you had not appreciated when you were younger. Her skin looked good too. Not perfect, not ageless, but healthy and well cared for. The lines she had were earned, natural, the result of a life lived fully. But her skin was soft, well moisturized, free of the irritation and sensitivity that came from constantly trying new products. Your grandmother had been the same way. She used ivory soap and Vaseline and nothing else. Her skin was beautiful into her old age, soft and smooth despite the years. She did not believe in complicated routines or expensive products. She believed in simplicity and consistency. And her skin reflected that belief. You wondered if there was something to be learned from these women, from their refusal to be swayed by marketing, their trust in what they knew worked, their contentment with simple, affordable products that did their job without fanfare. Your mother reached for her Pond's one evening while you were visiting. She unscrewed the lid with practiced ease and began her nightly routine, the same routine she had done thousands of times before. There was something meditative about watching her, something peaceful in the repetition, the familiarity, the complete absence of doubt. She caught you watching and smiled. "Still think I should try that new cream you mentioned?" she asked, amused. You shook your head. "No," you said. "I think you should keep doing what you're doing." She nodded, satisfied, and continued her routine. The cold cream dissolved her makeup. The witch hazel tightened her skin. The moisturizer she'd used for decades sank into her face, and she looked exactly like herself, content and unbothered and beautiful in the way that comes from knowing yourself completely. You realized then that the products did not matter as much as you thought. What mattered was the ritual, the consistency, the trust. Your mother had found her routine decades ago and had never wavered, and that steadiness, that confidence, showed on her face more clearly than any expensive cream ever could. Years later, after she was gone, you found yourself reaching for Pond's cold cream in the drugstore. You bought a jar and took it home, unscrewing the lid and breathing in the familiar smell. It smelled like your mother, like watching her at her vanity, like the simple wisdom of knowing what worked and trusting it completely. You started using it, not every night, but sometimes, when you wanted to feel connected to her, when you wanted to remember what she'd taught you without words. That simplicity was its own kind of sophistication. That loyalty was valuable. That sometimes the best product was the one you trusted, the one you knew, the one that had been there all along. Decades later, the products have changed, the routines have evolved, but something essential remains. The quiet ritual of standing at a sink, caring for your skin, tending to yourself in the privacy of your own bathroom. You stand there now, older than your mother was when she taught you her routine, older than you ever imagined you would be. Your face has changed in ways that would have frightened your younger self. The lines are deep now, permanent. The spots have multiplied. Your skin has the texture of age, soft but thin, delicate in ways it never was before. But you still go through the motions. You still wash your face morning and night. You still apply cream with the same gentle movements your mother taught you. The products are different now, more advanced, more expensive, more effective perhaps. But the ritual remains the same. You think about the women who came before you, your mother, your grandmother, the generations of women who stood at sinks and cared for their skin with whatever they had available. Soap and water, cold cream, witch hazel. Simple products, simple rituals, but meaningful nonetheless. They did not have the science you have now. They did not know about antioxidants or peptides or retinol. They did not have access to dermatologists or prescription treatments or the wealth of information available at your fingertips. But they understood something fundamental. They understood that caring for your skin was not about perfection. It was about care itself, about taking time for yourself, about honouring your body through the simple act of tending to it. The bathroom looks different now than it did in the 70s. The products are sleeker, the lighting better, the mirror larger and clearer. But the essential experience is the same. You stand alone, your face bare, and you care for yourself in the quiet moments between the demands of the day. Your daughter texts you, sometimes asking for skincare advice. She's navigating the overwhelming modern landscape of products and routines and conflicting information. You tell her what your mother told you. Find what works for you. Be consistent. Do not let marketing make you feel inadequate. Trust your skin. She does not always listen. She is young, still searching, still believing that the perfect routine is out there somewhere if she just keeps looking. You understand. You are the same at her age. But you hope that eventually she will find her way to simplicity, to trust, to the peace that comes from knowing what works and sticking with it. You think about what you would tell your younger self if you could. You would tell her to worry less about the lines that were coming, to spend less time examining her face for flaws, to trust that she was beautiful, that she would remain beautiful, that beauty was not about smooth skin or perfect features, but about the life lived behind the face. You would tell her that the expensive creams were not magic, that they could not stop time or erase aging, that she would get older regardless, and that was not a tragedy but a gift. Every year, every line, every change was evidence that she was still here, still living, still moving through the world with purpose and presence. You would tell her to enjoy her young skin while she had it, not by obsessing over maintaining it, but by simply appreciating it. To go outside without worry, to laugh without thinking about the lines it created, to live fully without calculating the cost to her appearance. But mostly you would tell her that she was enough, that her face, however it changed, would always be enough, that the ritual of caring for her skin mattered not, because it would keep her young, but because it was an act of self-love, a daily reminder that she deserved care and attention and tenderness. You finish your routine and turn off the bathroom light. Your face is clean, moisturized, tended to. It is not young. It is not perfect, but it is yours. And after all these years, after all the products and routines and worries, you have finally made peace with that. The ritual remains, the care remains, the quiet moment at the sink, alone with yourself, remains. And that, you realize, is what matters most. Not the products you use or the results you achieve, but the simple act of showing up for yourself, day after day, year after year, and saying through your actions, I am worth caring for. I am worth this time. I am enough. You walk away from the mirror and into the rest of your evening. Tomorrow you will return. Tomorrow you will stand at the sink again and repeat the ritual. And the day after that, and the day after that. For as long as you are here, for as long as you have this body and this face and this life, you will tend to yourself with care. Because that is what remains when everything else has changed. The care, the ritual, the love you show yourself in the quiet, private moments when no one else is watching. And that, finally, is enough. And just like that, we have moved through an entire era of care. From the cold cream wiped away with tissues, to the Noxema that stung just enough to feel like it was working, to the simple belief that soap and water and a jar of moisturizer were all you really needed. We walked through bathrooms lit by single bulbs, stood at sinks where mothers taught daughters, sat at vanities where women took off the day and found themselves again in the mirror. The women of the 70s did not have our science. They did not have our options. But they had something we are still learning to reclaim. The quiet confidence that simple care was sufficient, that tending to yourself did not require perfection or performance, that 5 minutes at the sink, a jar of cream, and the belief that you were worth caring for, that was enough. So tonight, as you settle into your own pillow, maybe think about those women, the ones who stood at bathroom sinks across America, washing their faces before bed, smoothing cream into their skin, performing small acts of care that no one else would see. They were not trying to stop time. They were simply moving through it with grace, with consistency, with the understanding that caring for yourself was not vanity but dignity. And maybe, if you want, you can carry something forward from them. Not a specific product or routine, but a feeling, the feeling of enough, the permission to keep it simple, the freedom to care for yourself without pressure, without judgment, without the weight of impossible standards. History is not always grand. Sometimes it is just a woman at a sink, a jar of cold cream, and the quiet ritual of tending to herself before sleep. And that, it turns out, was always enough. Good night, rest well, and may your skin and your heart know peace.